Replies to claims by Professor Lawrence Krauss against religion, the Big Bang, and the Quran. This video is a property of Ahmed Tahan, a researcher in the science of the Quran, claiming that the science buried gods. Professor Krauss claimed in a video presentation has a title of Science Buried God that the development of science came to minimize the belief that gods have hands on every detail of creation. Per Professor Krauss' claim, now science buried gods such as the gods of the sun, moon, oceans, and etc., even the one God represented by Jesus Christ and the God that exists everywhere. He and Professor Dawkins also claimed that the science and atheism belief show that the universe was created by physics laws where a superior being or a god of whatsoever has no hands on and not needed to start the universe creation. Enhancing the unbelief in God, Professor Krauss and Professor Dawkins produced a movie named The Unbelievers. They were its stars, in addition to the many video presentations and publications defy religions. Replies to Professor Krauss' claims. Number 1. Islam preceded atheism in burying gods of polytheists, including the belief of Jesus Christ as a god and the belief of the atheists, as atheists belief identified in Islam as Dahriyun. Dahriyun is an equivalent belief to that of being created by chance or a chaotic process, no hands of God involved in. Islam buried these beliefs on behalf of Allah, the one God who exists everywhere, dissimilar to his creation in anything and not a part of it. As I see it, it is a challenge between the atheists, who are the unbelievers as they identify themselves in their movie titled Unbelievers, and the believers in the one God that exists everywhere. They name him Allah. Replies to Professor Krauss and Professor Dawkins' claim that the greatest scientists are atheists, unbelievers. The indication I have is that the science couldn't bury Allah, the one God that exists everywhere. On the contrary of that, it maintained the belief of him created the universe. And when atheists identified themselves as unbelievers, proved his superiority on them and their science. How is that? Cosmology and astrophysics atheist scientists presented papers lead to that the universe came from nothing as a superforce extremely small and hot and as primordial soup mix. A brief inflation occurred during which the superforce broke into four forces, thinking that the matter came out of them, developing within the primordial soup mix. Considering that the superforce is the only thing existed in this early stage of the universe, this occurred in a process they named it the Big Bang. Therefore, the Big Bang started with energy and ended with matter and energy. Coming from nothing and developing into primordial soup mix proved Ayah 30, chapter 21 is right. Ayah 30, don't the unbelievers see that the skies and the earth were held together not to spill, and then we cracked them. In addition, we made from water every living thing, when they will become ready to believe. In chapter 21, Al-Anbiya. The atheist scientists identify themselves as unbelievers, proving the first part of the ayah. Don't the unbelievers see that the skies and the earth were held together? The unbelievers found out that the universe came from nothing. Number two, they said that the universe came from nothing, unable to develop until an explosion occurred, starting a brief inflation, named it as the Big Bang. The explosion resulted in primordial soup mix. This proved the second part: the skies and the earth were held together not to spill, and then we cracked them. Except instead of the explosion, there was a crack. Ratqan means unable to develop. The skies and the earth mentioned in Ayah 30, chapter 21, are not as simple people imagine them. They are not our earth attached to the firmament or the skies. They are the primary things of the matter, energy, and primary things of the living creatures. Before the crack, Big Bang, they were together unable to spill until the crack happened, and from primary things of primordial soup mix developed into atoms. These atoms altogether will end after the crack into every object in the universe that initiates by the sky that backwards and the earth that drifts. There are two ayat mentioned in chapter Al-Tariq in the Quran. Therefore, the primary things of the energy and matter will end into planets and stars formed by a collapse of gravity, which is the sky that backwards, and coalesce to end with the convection currents rift their surfaces. This is the earth that drifts. Replies to Professor Krauss and Professor Dawkins' claim that greatest scientists are superiors over religions. As unbeliever scientists proved that Ayah 30, chapter 21 of the Quran is right, I want to show their faults compared to the ayah mentioned above. Number one, the crack mentioned in the ayah is not the Big Bang. The ayah is telling about the universe before the claimed explosion of the Big Bang. Number two, describing the start of the universe as energy is a big mistake, because we are told in the Quran that the universe before the crack started as primary things, divided into three categories: primary things of the matter, primary things of the energy, primary things of the living things, all unable to spill until the crack occurred. The Big Bang did not start with an explosion, but with a crack. The drawings are so clear. Number four, primordial soup did not develop from energy but from primary things of the energy and matter carried with a storming wind that separated between them through a complicated process started with the creation of the gravity attraction sky. Primary things developed into pairs and divided into matter and antimatter. The remainder of pairs after annihilation had resonance between them, then formed the mixed matter. Then primary pairs of different origins picked out of the mixed matter, creating the atom. Light and primary living things all occurred within a brief inflation, raised the gravity attraction sky, and brought the universe into a homogeneous state. This is briefly how early Muslim scholars such as Imam Ali believed, while the non-Muslim world of that time believed that the universe is finite and static, has the earth at its center. I would like to suggest to Professor Lawrence Krauss and Richard Dawkins not to continue taking the creation by Allah mentioned in the Quran lightly and see it as myths and nonsense. The case is the same with me. I see many of theories are not complete and full of flaws, have to be fixed. I can call them, if you like, rubbish, nonsense, ridiculous, and myths. I also like to suggest that they shouldn't compare the Quran with other religions. The Quran provides a timeline of the creation from the beginning to the end, step by step, approves many compatible facts scientists discover. I think cannot be found in other religions. You will believe it when you understand the Quran the way I do. Altogether, Quran and facts discovered are backing me. Unlike the scientists, they depend on theories backed by evidences, sometimes not enough. So they interpret evidences to make the theory a fact. Many of the theories cannot be fact forever. If compared to the Quran, they are just myths and nonsense. Theories such as the universe will expand forever and end in freeze, and the brief inflation of the Big Bang ended homogeneous universe, triggering expansion. I also would like to suggest to atheist scientists that they should be more fair as not all religions have myths, and it is more wise to try to be just with the Quran that fairly told in Ayah 30, chapter 21, and give a credit for the unbelievers that they will be able to find out that the skies and the earth were unable to spill until then he cracked them, and they did as the ayah told, regardless of what they think, whether it was a crack or explosion. More than 1,400 years, millions of Muslims believe that the Quran told about the creation step by step that is explained to them by Imam Ali and the cousin of the Messenger. They believe it without looking for evidence as part of their faith. The creation facts told in the Quran, step by step from before the Big Bang to the Doomsday, are more advanced and complete than that you are discovering of the scientists as many of the scientific findings comply to it. Refuting the creation told in the Quran, professors, before knowing what exactly it wants to say, will defy many of the facts scientists discovered. Better not to blindly refute it or say it is nonsense and myths.